Welcome to this edition of Eagle's Eye. I'm your host, Daisha Lene, and thanks for tuning in. I'm joined today by senior Katelyn Meeks, who will be graduating from Ashland University next Saturday. Katelyn, thank you for joining us today.
Daisha, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Firstly, congratulations on graduating. How does it feel to be at the end of your college journey?
The best words to describe it are bittersweet. I remember I was just thinking about this the other day when I graduated from high school, and I was like, man, I'm just ready to be done with high school. I just did not like high school. I was like, get me out of this place as fast as possible. But college was different. It wasn't like high school. I grew a lot, I learned a lot, and I think I learned a lot about myself and as a leader. Part of me would like just to stay a bit longer, to just savor a few of those last little moments and last little memories with people. But I also know I need to leave at some point and spread my wings and grow. So bittersweet, I would think, is the best words to describe it.
Absolutely. So moving on to your college career, you managed the student newspaper, The Collegian, for 2 years, and managing any newspaper is hard. Did you face any backlash or tough decisions over what was published?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, of course, in any editor position, you're going to face that when you're called into a few offices or you're trying to stand your ground and people don't always understand. That's the toughest part. Journalism is an uphill battle, and funny enough, I looked up this fun little stat the other day. Journalism is like one of the top 10 most ranked stressful jobs there is. Because I think it takes a toll on a lot of people. You have to be able to stand your own ground, hold to your own principles and your own values. And for a college student, that's difficult. Part of you is discovering who you are at the same time as you are trying to do all the stories and to learn about the profession itself. There was one story I remember back when I was news editor, and I got called to the DEI office. There was upset, controversies and whatever, but I stood my ground. This was the truth. This is what happened. And I report on it accurately and fairly. I would never slight anybody or not report the truth at all because that's unethical. But to hold your ground and to stand up for those principles is the most hardest and difficult thing. But also to know what stories to publish and what to not. What is good, fair journalism and what is not. And that's the biggest thing. You have to learn and develop that sense over time.
Yeah. As you said, journalism is an intense world, and you not only wrote for The Collegian, but a higher education news site, The College Fix. What has been your most challenging story to work on, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Yeah, there's been a lot of different ones for The College Fix. I actually wrote about a Pittsburgh hospital and them using fetal material from babies, actually, and to do experiments on it and stuff. Tough. When you're reading about this information, you're like, how do I separate your own views for reporting the information on this matter too? A lot of the subjects I did for that were pretty sensitive matters. One of them was the Palestine protests. I remember I sat down with a professor from Columbia University and talked to him about it. That was the coolest thing ever. I thought, I'm hearing this from a real, actual professor who is actually, something has happened and he's made it through and kind of expressed his own emotions and feelings and stuff. Another tough story I did was when a sorority here on campus, is kind of going back to a previous question, and Eagles for Pride wanted to bring in drag queens, but were rejected about it. How do you handle that? That's such a highly politicized topic, highly politicized thing. How do you handle that? Any budget matters stories? Boy, that's hard because no university wants the numbers to come out on how they're doing. It's always a big topic, a big situation. And also, how do you report about numbers? That's difficult. I'm not the most math STEM-oriented person on the planet, so definitely having to learn, how do I communicate this? What does this mean? And asking those correct questions to make sure I get the correct information, that I am able to report it accurately and fairly and well.
Yeah, clearly you lived through an intense journalism world.
Yeah.
If you had to change the way students prepare for that world, how would you go about doing that?
Do more difficult stories as you progress on. If you're not challenging yourself, you're not changing yourself. If you're not stepping up and continuing to push yourself and do that harder story, you're not going to grow. I always tell this to people. In the beginning, okay, let's write I remember the first story I wrote. It was about the JDM winning awards. That's a fairly simple piece to do. I wouldn't say it's difficult or anything. But for me at the time, I needed that as a freshman. I was learning the ropes. I'm trying to figure out what to do. But as you go, push yourself. Go do the bigger story. Go report on the university budget. Go report on the story that's going to cause some backlash and controversy. Because you yourself are going to grow as a person and mature on how you handle the story, how you write it, how you seek feedback, and how you grow. So that's the biggest thing. And even How do you, if there's like an editor who doesn't agree with how you wrote this, how do you respond back? How, in a nice manner, like why you wrote it this way, and all the steps of the process. I definitely think that's the biggest thing. You have to keep pushing yourself. Do stories you don't want to do. I tell people that all the time. They don't believe me, but it'll push you to be an even better journalist.
Yeah, and I hope viewers listen to that. Moving on from print, though, you've also done television and radio for AUTV and WRDL, respectively. What's been your favorite on-air moment?
Oh, man, that's such a tough question. I definitely loved doing the election show. Like, that was fun. I like politics a lot, if you know me. Since I was a kid, I've been sitting down watching always the 6 o'clock news. That was my favorite thing growing up. It also was my favorite thing, like listening to the radio and hearing all these different things. Just loved politics, always loved doing that. It was always my dream. That was my goal. And JDM was like, I said my freshman year, I said, my goal, my senior year, end up on that desk doing it live. Made that happen. Because I was going to be on that desk. Nothing was going to stop me. Yeah. But another thing is I did radio my last semester, the Early Bird's Word. I loved it. I mean, I just get to talk about these different topics, ask people different questions, kind of play trivia and all these different fun things. So there hasn't been like these big, it's all the little moments that I think it's made it so special. There hasn't been like the big moment, well, unless you count the election show, I'd say is that big moment, but it's all those little things that just add up that really make it all around just special.
Yeah, so outside of Ashland University, you completed several internships. Which one was the most impactful?
They were all impactful in different ways. And it's hard to just say which one's the most impactful. My first internship, I learned a lot about be confident in who you are as a person. My boss at the very end sat me down and said, Katelyn, you're such a hard worker, you do everything, but be more confident in who you are as a person. I just took that advice forever. I also learned a lot about trust in that first internship. I remember the boss would give me his credit card and said, go out and buy all these props. I remember I went to like Dick's Sporting Goods and had like $900 worth of like softball props for a commercial. And I was like, this guy is giving me his like American Express credit card for the company and trusting me to do this. But it showed a lot about trust. Trust is a two-way street. And it's very important in like a managerial relationship. The second internship I did was actually in Washington, D.C. over the summer. And I was an audio and video intern, so something different, like outside my realm. And I was doing a lot of podcasting, but I learned how important it is to be just behind the scenes and doing that stuff and struggling over things. I remember I was editing videos and I was like so angry and mad, like I could just not figure out certain things. And I had to sit there and Google it and figure out how to do it. Or like podcasting, of how I remember having to turn around at podcasting, like you have 40 minutes, go, you better turn this around. And it became a time situation, learning how to do those things correctly and accurately to not mess it up and do it quickly and do it well. That's what I learned from that. Last internship I had was at the Ohio State Fair. I learned a lot what it was like to kind of build rapport with other people, like even reporters for a lot of these stories, because I had to set up these interviews. How do I put trust between me and that executive producer of that show? How do I build these relationships and work on them? How do I learn just to have conversations with people when I'm just getting to know them in a very short amount of time? And also, what I learned from that one too is there's 2 other internships where how do you learn to like lean other people when you really need something? How do you learn from each other? How do you rely on each other on stressful situations and communicate that well?
Yeah, so clearly you've done a lot during college to set yourself apart from the herd. But one of the biggest things you've done is a TED Talk. Can you detail that for us?
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a TED Talk, everyone. I'm just going to audition. I was like, I'm not going to get picked. Who wants to hear any Katelyn words or anything like that? So I did this TED Talk, and I did it on the gift of struggling. It's a really important subject to me because growing up, I've struggled with a lot of different things, a lot of different challenges, a lot of different hurdles. So I was like, I want to make this interesting and relatable to people. So I did it on my career showing animals with turkeys. Believe it or not, it's kind of one of the most bizarre things about me, but I did it talking about how I could not ever figure out how to raise this animal correctly, but how I perfected it over time to learn how to do it better, and then I achieved success. But I talked about struggling to get that point of success, but I also talked about the struggle of like when you're the winner and you're losing, because that is so difficult. Like you think you know and you think you're that good, but having to deal with that, that's hard. And it's hard like when you're in a big position and you lose and something doesn't work out. How do you handle yourself? How do you struggle with that? How do you overcome that? And how do you achieve even greater success from that? And that also builds into kind of resilience, the comeback.
Yeah, being at Ash University, you've had so many different obligations, from experiencing television, print, radio, the Ashbrook program, a TED Talk, and so many other demanding obligations. Did you ever feel pressure to do it all, and would you go back and change anything?
I don't think I would. Like, I've enjoyed my time with the Ashbrook Scholars Program. I've enjoyed my time here and everything else. Like, it's just, I live in such different worlds. I live in the realm of the Ashbrook academic-y scholar, I guess you could say, and then I live in this world too. Totally separate things, but I think it's made me a better person, a more understanding person, a more compassionate person, and a better leader. Like, how do you lead different groups of people? I could go over in Ashbrook and it's all these people that are more brainy, more not introverted, different, versus over here where people are more driven, more work ethic. It's just a difference in your audience, right? But I definitely wouldn't change anything. I've loved every minute of it, whether good, whether bad, because it taught me some lesson in return in the long run.
Yeah, circling back to something lighthearted, what's been your favorite thing about being an Eagle at Ash University?
I think I've just loved the community. I've gotten to meet so many people. Like, I've met the presidents of this university, which is something rare for a student to say, like, oh yeah, I go and talk to the president, like, once every 2 weeks. I've met all the administrators, met all the people, the students. What makes this place truly wonderful and impactful? I think that's the best part of my job as a journalist here, is you get to tell all these wonderful stories about this university, whether it's good, whether it's bad, and you can bring the community together around those stories.
Yeah, now a question we have to ask all the seniors is, what's next for you after graduation?
Yeah, this is interesting. This is unexpected. I'm hoping to join the United States Marine Corps, but over the summer, I will actually be a head swim coach. Something different to challenge me in a different way, in a different light. And the reason I'm hoping to be a part of the Marines is because I want to develop myself to be a better leader and a better person and a better individual in the long run and in the long term.
Finally, what advice would you give to incoming freshmen or even current college students?
Be yourself. Go up and talk to people. My gosh, sometimes I just tell people, like, oh, I'm not going to go over. Like, go up and say, can I have lunch with you? Can I go hang out with you? What's your name? Stuff like that. Trust me, it all takes just one little question to get a conversation going. And if journalism's taught me, it's that. Another thing is learn yourself and learn to be aware of yourself is the biggest thing. Like what you don't like as a person, what you look for in friendships, and what you value in this world. Because those are the biggest things that are going to take you long term in college and really like show you who you are and help you develop and grow.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for being a part of our program. Good luck on all your future endeavors.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay.
That will be it for our episode of Eagle's Eye. Make sure to follow us across all social media at AUTV Ashland. Until next time, I'm Katelyn. Thanks for watching.